Hello everyone and welcome to a new series of counterpoint style conversations, counterpoint style conversations here on your Arlington Dollar. I'm James Milan and I am here in the studio with Annie LaCourt and Dean Carman. To begin with, I would love to just throw it out to you both to offer your own perspectives. What are we talking about here with the school enrollment situation?
It is something that we should take a positive attitude towards because in essence it's because we've been so successful over the last 10 years in improving our schools and making our town an attractive place to live.
I mean, Annie's right in what she's saying, but it also has a personal aspect that depending on who you are, it could be a non-issue, a challenge, or a crisis.
So what are the financial impacts likely to be for Arlingtonians?
We have to look at the cost. And so over the last decade, property taxes in this town have increased significantly. So if we went with the gold standard for everything, if we got the best, you put up the best edition possible at Thompson and Hardy and took back the Gibbs and we opened it up brand new and shiny and we built the most expensive Arlington High we could and the most expensive Minuteman we could, but we added all this money to the school system, just really drastic stuff, right? Property taxes could go up 50 to 70% at that point, which I don't think anyone would do that, right? So now you got to say, okay, well, we don't want to do that. How are we going to work through the challenges at a different level? And I think a lot of times for people's financial interest, I think that's the big thing a lot of people talk about. I think that's really one of the big challenges we have as we move forward. How do you balance both the new residents and the older residents who in some ways have completely different views of affordability?
Schools are one of the few services that we absolutely have to provide. At some point, the schools are going to simply to provide the mandated services for these students, those budgets are going to have to increase and that money is going to have to come from somewhere. And if it doesn't come from an increase in our taxes above the 2.5%, it's going to come from other services in the town. How do we strike the right balance of what everybody in town needs? One way to solve, for example, the school enrollment problem by providing the schools with more operating funds is to cut some other service. We could stop providing your trash collection for free. We could start charging for trash collection. That's another way to raise the funds that are needed.
What are we going to be expected to pay money for or need money for? How soon?
The first one I think that's going to come before the voters is the rebuild of Minuteman Vocational. So if you were to look at Minuteman, it's probably going to cost the average taxpayer per year for the next 30 years. It likely could be, if it's $1.5 million, about $75. Next in the pipeline would be, right behind that would be Arlington High School.
Right.
So that's always the wild card, right? Because there are three options you can have here. You can knock the thing down and rebuild a brand new high school. You could refurbish the existing building, or you could do a combination of the two. And the cost could range, right? It could be a $100 million refurbishment. It could be a $200 million rebuild. So I think a lot of times I've heard people talking consistently about $100 million share for the Arlington taxpayer that's going to have to finance. Again, we don't have the money for that. It's going to have to be through an override. Arlington High is going to cost the average taxpayer no less than, I would say, $350, probably no more than $500 per year.
Per year.
Per year. Right. This isn't a cheap school.
How is it that you would urge and encourage Arlingtonians to get involved in this conversation?
Town meeting members try to hold public meetings to discuss the warrant, all right? I think citizens should make the time to come to those meetings and meet their town meeting members. Another way is just to get engaged with the town website and look at the information that's available there. The 5-year plan is laid out there and you can see where we go right at the bottom line. Talk to your elected officials. There's already begun to be a series of public meetings to talk about the enrollment crisis in the schools. I think you need to come to those public meetings and get yourself engaged with that process. Or if nothing else, watch them on ACMi.
We really do appreciate you guys taking the time. So for Dean Carman, for Annie LaCourt, I'm James Milan. Thanks for joining us for this edition of Your Arlington Dollar, and we'll see you again soon.